All right, we had another explosive and amazing episode with solo leveling. The second episode, I am actually excited because this concludes the snow dungeon area, which we had seen a lot of trailers about this happening when it was introducing, saying like, oh, solo leveling season 2 is happening. So the fact that this is wrapped up in the second episode, that just means that the rest of the season is just gonna be so good and such a banger that it wasn't like drawn out more and more and more, which even in the manga, it was only a couple of chapters long. It wasn't like a big huge deal, but it was a stepping stone for Jinwoo. And even in the anime, there was a lot of new things and changes that we actually will get into. And this is definitely an anime that not only am I loving, I know a lot of you guys are loving as well. So let's get into it, because there honestly was a lot of differences between the actual anime and the manhwa that it really, I think, is something that might have been lost in translation, that I think would have actually made this episode shine brighter. Although this was a great episode, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a few little things that if they kind of sprinkled it in, if they had time, that would have been just even, elevated even higher. But before we actually get into the actual differences between the two, let's talk about some things from this episode. The biggest thing I think is here. Now, this might have been overlooked by a lot of people. The fact that he rose Kim Chul and he became Iron and is still dumb just kind of goes to show that, Kim himself wasn't the smartest of things. Of course, him trying to be a leader. And I love how after the dude's dead, Iron just keeps hitting him. He's like, hey, hold up, man. It's done. Stop it. And then Iron's just kind of looking around and then just looks at it, it's like, victory. The key is what was important here is that this is, I would dare say, the first major time that we see the soldiers under Jinwoo have a personality. And if it holds true to the manhwa, this is only going to be just kind of the first of many times that as he gains more soldiers, that these soldiers interact with each other and with him, and they're not just cut and dry like soulless beings. They actually have some sort of personality from when they were either A, alive, or B, just that they learn and gain with the interactions between Jinwoo and the soldiers and stuff. So I'm sure as even the season develops and the anime develops, that we'll see a lot more of these nuanced interactions between his soldiers, him, and everybody else, because this is where the fun starts, right? It can't just be all action all the time. You gotta sprinkle in some diversity in there, and that's what elevates the show to be even better. So I am looking forward to this. But as we are looking at this aspect of Kim Chul, we gotta look at the fact that one of the major differences was Jinwoo and the manhwa absolutely mentally ran circles around Kim Chul. Like, he completely tricked him. In the anime, it didn't really seem that bad. It didn't seem that much of a case. But it was blatantly a trick from Jinwoo against Kim in order to turn him into Iron. So here, when of course Kim is getting all mad and is like, how dare you guys? It's Jinwoo's fault. It's just like, what's going on? One difference that was actually happening was the way that he just hit him. Like in the anime, it just kind of like, he just kind of hit his head and just like threw him down, and then he just kind of rolled. In the actual manhwa, he came up behind him and just karate chopped him in the back of the head. And, a slight difference, not that much, but kind of show the strength of Jinwoo. Jinwoo just like, yeah, you're the one that's the cause. Now, one thing they edited out, which I didn't talk about last week because I didn't know if they were going to include it this week as like kind of a little thing. When Kim Chul cut the team in half, and he's like, oh, the losers go over here, and I'm going to take the main guys, and we're going to go this way. And then in the anime, it showed how they came against an ice bear, and they were like, haha, we got the ice bear, this is going to be easy. So we saw, the potential out of Kim as being an A rank, oh, why is he A rank? Oh, this is the reason. Well, in the manhwa, the teammates came up to him and was like, hey, or they didn't even come up to him, they just stated, it's like, hey, oh man, oh, look at this meat. This is all this stuff that we have. We can live off this for a good while off of just one ice bear. If we start killing more, we'll have enough food to sustain for a good long while. And then Kim and his dumb behind was like, nah, our goal should be just to kill the boss. And once we kill the boss, we'll be golden. We'll be all right. And then we'll get out of this dungeon. We don't need to preserve anything. We don't need to set up camp. We don't need to do anything. Well, you learn that, of course, one of the things that was lost in translation was the fact that they kept updating saying, oh, it's been 3 hours since the Red Gate happened. Well, that translates to being 3 days. So from that moment that they were into the dungeon and he killed the ice bear, 3 days later happened. They haven't set up camp, they haven't eaten, they haven't done anything for Kim's party. So by the time they face the elves, yeah, they all massacred. That's why Kim was like, oh man, if only I had eaten, if only I had done something, I would have been stronger, and this would have been no problem. I would have been able to deal with the elves. And then, of course, that's when he came back and saw Jinwoo's camp has all this food. He's like, wait a minute, this isn't right. And then started envying what they had. If he had actually been a good leader, he would have been able to set up camp, done a lot of things, and understand that they're going to be there for a good while, that they need to find their own resources, get better at it, and get stronger, then take on the boss. This wasn't going to be a simple, like, 1 hour thing, deal with the boss and get out. So he messed up there. And that's why I said last week, he was not everyone's meant to be a leader. Just because he's strong, just because he's a rank and he's supposed to be, or he wants to be in the White Tiger Guild upper echelon of the dungeon raids and stuff, doesn't mean that he's cut out to be a good leader, and thus costing him his life. Now, here's where Jinwoo actually manipulated Kim to such a degree. In the actual manhwa, when Jinwoo was fighting against the elves, he saw Kim's sword. His sword actually landed away from his body. So Kim is knocked out by a tree, and then Jinwoo sees the sword, and then Jinwoo gets the idea of like, I need a soldier that's stronger, frontline soldier. It won't be just me and Egress. We need someone up in the front line. So he sees the sword, and as he's about to battle the elves, he kicks the sword. It flies in the air and lands right next to Kim. So then later, Kim wakes up, sees his sword, and instantly gets enraged and is like, I need to kill Jinwoo. Jinwoo die. And thus the whole, event, if you will. So in the anime, it didn't really showcase that much. So when Kim is dying, it was like, you saw this coming from the beginning. Yeah, of course he saw it coming from the beginning. It just kind of stressed it a little bit more in the manhwa about his manipulation and how, he was able to just mentally run circles around this guy. Now, another major change is this girl, Sung Yi. So to kind of dabble into her, of course, in the past, you got to remember her personality. Of course, she wanted to become a hunter. She didn't like the fact she was going to school. And she's like, why do I even have to go to school? I could just hunt and make money. We already talked about that previously. So of course, that's why Jinwoo takes her on this trip to kind of show her what an actual dungeon is like. So then that way it kind of deters her from this hunter-only mindset that they can kind of do more than just being a hunter. There's a lot of changes that she actually went through. And it showed it a little bit in the anime, but it didn't really kind of show it as much. Like in the anime, you see where she just changes the way she calls him. Like she's been calling him I believe by his full name, Sung Jinwoo, and then in the anime she just went to Jinwoo. Well, in the actual manhwa, she went with a different name. She went by Oppa. And in that case, it's referred to like older brother, like a term of endearment whenever your relationship gets closer. That in this case, she started calling him like, hey, big bro, even though they're not related, and just kind of like endearment. That's why he was like, wait, what? And the manhwa, he was like, Oppa, wait, where did this come from? Well, she kind of is warming up to him to see how powerful he is, how strong he is. So thus, she's like, hey, this is my best friend's older brother. She kind of, getting a little closer to him. And yes, she is underage because she is in high school. I think she's probably at this point, like, I don't know, 16, 17. So, and of course, the whole interaction with his friend was like, wait a minute, you do know she's underage? He's like, yeah. And they, the whole misunderstanding was kind of hilarious. But she went through a huge change because here she is, kind of all dressed up and nice, but if you remember what she was wearing the night before, or earlier in that day, I guess you could say, she was wearing like, like a sweater and kind of like with a hoodie, like how she always tried to hide her face and such. So it's kind of representing that she went from one way to another. It was an even bigger drastic change in the manhwa because there she dressed up in all black. She normally would be all black, all dark, and it's like, oh yes, brooding and trying to be like this rambunctious little girl trying to have her own way. But then after this event happened, she completely changed her dress. She actually started to dress more civilized, nicer, brighter colors, and of course also calling him Oppa. And it's just totally absolutely changed her whole personality and thought process to where she's more accommodating, nicer, and instead of trying to cut people off, trying to talk, and she's still going with them to try to learn how to be a hunter, but she's not like adamant about like, oh, I'm only going to be a hunter only. So this whole event, which is life-changing, because she definitely would have died if Jinwoo wasn't there, but Jinwoo was the one that brought her, so it was his responsibility for her. So thankfully, they were able to get out of there safe and sound, and she has a better outlook on life. That's really it for like the major changes as far as for between the manhwa and the anime. There was some slight stuff here and there. For example, how the anime like continues, even from season 1, continues to cut short the amount of people that actually can go into dungeons. And I think it's because they want to draw less people. Like, for example, Jinwoo actually saved 4 people instead of just 3 because they literally just erased out a whole guy that kind of made some jokes here and there, but it wasn't really a big part. It is perfectly fine that they did that because he didn't really add too much to it. But I think it's to save an animation. They don't have to draw a whole nother person, have a whole nother person voice act for the small part. So it's like, okay, fine. It's not that big a deal. But I do want to talk about how just small little nuance things that happen. Like, I thought it was pretty cool how, Jinwoo uses the stealth skill that he gained to go in on against this elf, which I was the whole time like, yeah, do it. But if you notice, he actually used it again to walk away. He's just straight up is just casually walking as Iron is about to smash this guy to pieces. And I thought that, I don't know why, I just found that absolutely hilarious. Like, yeah, I'm gonna stealth in, stab, and I'm just gonna casually stealth away like, like nothing's happened. He already said, yeah, this victory's already won. And it's just not a big deal. I don't know, found that absolutely hilarious. But of course, the biggest takeaway is this moment where Jinwoo is trying to get information out of them in their past, the history, what's going on. And then the static stuff breaks apart and it's like, there's definitely something more going on here, especially where this guy just kind of erased and went back a few seconds. And of course, Jinwoo knows their language or can talk to their language. Yes, the system is definitely stronger than previously thought of. There's a lot more to it. So just the small beginnings, the breadcrumbs to kind of see there's more to this than meets the eye, especially when he's trying to say Jinwoo's not human, which clearly, like, what do you mean? Clearly, look at me, I'm human. Just the fact that he's considered a player now and leveling up unlike everybody else. So there's a lot of little mysteries that are still going on here, and a lot I personally have forgotten, but we will definitely go through them together. But I think we've run on long enough. The key is that there was a lot of little things that I think were lost in translation, but for the most part, as long as you guys are tuning here, we will go over it so that way you are not lost in translation and you know everything from the get-go. Anyway, great anime, awesome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys are subscribed if you're new here. I'd love to see you around here more often. And of course, if you've been here this long, make sure to hit that bell icon for notifications of more videos coming out, because this is going to be a great season, this winter season. It's going to be absolutely amazing with all the stellar anime that we have going on. You guys be safe. Take care, and Lord willing, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.